Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when I'm your SRE. Everything is awesome. Hmm? Mm. All right. Great. Let's verify this here. Yeah. Non-compliant. Yeah, okay. Let's go straight to the source. Here we go. One result. Let's grab that. Let's take a look here on this commit. I just jump straight to it. Ah, yeah, there we go. Financial. Okay. Well, let's send a little message, shall we? Sorry, Stevie G. And start using Chekhov because I don't want to find these things in runtime. Alrighty. And send. All right. Everything's still awesome. Okay, somewhat of a potentially simplified dramatization there. I may have created a Jira ticket perhaps as well, but generally you got the idea. That's what we're going to see in this video, how we can go from cloud to code to create enriched notifications using Slack, Yor, and AWS Lambda. Here we go. Okay, what we just saw is pretty straightforward, and let's take a quick look at the workflow that was just executed. So we started off with an Amazon Simple Storage Bucket S3 that was out of compliance due to a rule in AWS Config. That non-compliance rule triggered an alert through Amazon CloudWatch. We had configured a Lambda function, which was given access to the details for our resources via our IAM management. And from there, it was able to pull out the Yor tags and construct a detailed message and send that via a webhook to Slack. From that information, we were able to jump very quickly back to AWS Config to look at the resource, or straight into Git to see not just the entire commit, but the specific resource that it was associated with that misconfiguration. And from there, we can make some data-driven decisions. Not bad. Now, what makes this different and makes that Slack message that much more enriched is the ability to use Yor tags and incorporate that into the message. Now, let's take a quick look of what Yor does. Now, if you want a deep dive on Yor, check out our YouTube channel, and why not subscribe? There's a lot of great use cases and information about Yor tag and trace there. But for now, we'll just take a really quick look at what it can do. So this is where it begins. I've got an AWS S3 bucket. It's called Financials, and it's pretty simple. You can already see in the comments, this is from our intentionally non-compliant repo called TerraGoat. And Yor has been run on this once already. You can look in there and you can see already that we have the tags that begin with Git. These are placed here by Yor. These are basically the out-of-the-box tags you get if you run Yor in your CI with no parameters whatsoever. You will get an idea of the commit. You'll see the file, last modification date, and by whom, as well as modifiers, org, repo. There's a few extra ones here that I've added just so I can use different elements of AWS like cost allocation, etc., different use cases for a different video. But the important one I'm going to demonstrate here is this Yor trace. Yor trace is unique to both the commit and the resource. And because of that, that's what enables us to find a misconfiguration in AWS and go all the way back to code. It may sound complicated, but trust me, it isn't. There's pretty much 7 very simple steps, and one of them is just testing our setup. Let's take a quick look at those steps. So we start with creating an incoming webhook in our Slack workspace. That is super simple, and that's the first thing I will show you. After that, we'll set up rules in AWS Config. In this case, we're going to do some rules for S3 buckets. We'll create an IAM role and policy that grants our Lambda function permissions. We'll then create a Lambda function. Now that's actually the longest part of this, is to get that Lambda function correct and to also learn the format for an enriched Slack message. But the good news is that we've already done that, and it's in a GitHub repo. We can just go get it, paste it in, and now we're just making little tweaks that are specific to our own organization. Easy peasy. Finally, we're going to use that incoming webhook to notify a team of our out of compliance policies. We are going to create a CloudWatch rule to trigger that Lambda function. We're going to use the data from the CloudWatch as part of that Lambda. Then we're just going to test it. And that's exactly what we saw at the beginning of this video. So let's get started with step 1. Okay, if you've never done this before, it's super simple. Come with me and we will go to the management console, which even if you're in the Slack app and you do this, it will then jump into the web interface. So don't be alarmed if that's the case, but you also do need to have admin access for this account. So if you don't have it, you'll have to request it. So where I've gone is to manage apps and then custom integrations. And then from here, if you've already got webhooks in place, not a problem. You can just add a new one. If you don't, it's really easy to search for incoming, and you'll see it's the first thing that comes up. You can click that and add that to your Slack workspace. No big deal. Next thing we want to do is click on incoming webhooks, and we can add a new webhook. It only takes a few seconds. We can click add to Slack, or if we already have one in place, we can look at our configuration and see the webhooks we've already got. Now I've already set this one up, so we can take a look at this one and see the kind of things that we need to add to make this happen. The most important thing we need here, of course, is this webhook URL. We need to name the channel that we want it to be sending to, give it a descriptive label, and that's kind of it. After this, we just want to see the incoming name. You can use the Bridge Crew logo if you want, because it's a Bridge Crew notification. You can get that also from the GitHub repo that is associated with this video. By the way, the link to the blog is down below in the description. So you go take a look there and you can get more assets associated with this video. And there we go. Just a preview message to show you what it looks like. Save settings, copy this webhook URL for use later in our Lambda function. And we're good to go. All right, we're on to step 2 already, and things are flying along. The next thing we're going to do is set up a rule in AWS Config. Now, it's very possible you already have rules set up in AWS Config, but for the purpose of this demo, let's do it. Let's just pretend you don't, and let's go through the process, all right? All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our AWS Config. We're going to view our dashboard, and we're going to create a new rule. You can see our rules over here. We can add one. I've already got some created. Let's just add a new one for the sake of it. I want an AWS managed rule. We're not going to create anything custom, so it's pretty straightforward. And there are some really good rules already out of the box. So I can type S3 default, and quite a common misconfiguration is the S3 default encryption KMS. So I can look for that, click next. And for now, that's really kind of all I need to do. But I think the default settings all look fine to me. AS3 bucket. I can add some custom parameters if I want, just to let people know that I made this, etc. And from there, we're good to go. So let's add that rule. All right, we're cooking with gas now. What we got to do is create an IAM rule to make sure that our Lambda function has the ability to get all of the details of the resource, including the metadata that the Yor tags add. And that's not that hard. We're going to go to roles. We're going to create a new role. Now we already have AWS service selected, and common use cases up here are Lambda. That's handy. Let's just click that. Click next to add permissions. And there's a lot of permissions. Not gonna kid you there. You have to know what ones you need. For lambdas in particular, you want AWS Lambda. There you go. If you type that, then you'll get AWS Lambda. We don't have to go full access. We can go with basic execution role. So we can say yes to that. And then we also need access, and this is what's unique about this. We need access to the AWS Resource Groups API, and there it is. So we need access to that. And it's that API that allows us access to read tags from any type of resource, and that's important. So once we've added those two, we can click Next. We can add some personal tags if we want. Steve, demo. Review what we've done. Those are our resources. We'll give the role a name, which is I am Lambda. Oops. And we'll do it according to the correct specs for AWS this time. And there we go. Let's create our role. Okay, we're getting close, and this is part of the fun stuff. We're going to go create our Lambda now. I'm going to go get the code from the GitHub repo where you can go grab it as well. Let's do that now. So I'm here. You can see I'm ready and waiting to create this Lambda. I've got Lambda. Ooh, I've got my finger on the trigger. But what I'm also going to show you is if I go over here, you'll see in my personal repo, Yor Slack Lambda. If we look at, I'm looking at some example code actually. That's worth noting that in the examples, there's some JSON you can use for testing. So just make a note of that. Here is my Lambda function. So for now, I can just click in there. I can take a look at it. I can look at the raw. So we can sit here ready to grab it. Now you're looking at it thinking, ugh, that was the long bit. Yeah, but that's why we've done this bit for you. All right, so let's go back to our IAM management console. Let's click on Lambda. And we're going to create one from scratch. We've got a bunch already made. Let's create function author from scratch. That is correct. Let's give it a name. Let's sort your compliance, your demo. Okay. And mine's written in Python. So I'm going to do it in Python 3.8, which makes sense. And I think that might be all we need. Default execution role. We just created a role, didn't we? All right, well, let's open that up. Use an existing role. What did we call our role? We called it I am Lambda. Amazing. So now you can see we're connecting the dots between what we're going to allow this Lambda to do based on the role we just created. And that's all good stuff. So we are done. Let's create the function. It's going to give us probably some default code, which we're not at all going to use, but we've got everything we need in place. Now we see we've got the add trigger. That's for a later step where we're going to connect it to our CloudWatch once we've created those rules. So let's not get too hasty. Let's go down, click on our function, open up this default code. Hello from Lambda. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I've gone to this repo. I'm just going to select the lot. If I could do that simply, I would, but I like to make things difficult for myself. All right, that should be everything. Grab it. And let's paste that beast into here. Now, if you're new to Lambda, it's great. It auto-saves. So it's not like even if your whole thing crashed, you're good to go. If you want to actually use it or test it, you must push deploy. So if you click test now, it's going to run the previous stuff. So just so you know. I know I made that mistake when I first started. Okay, so we have a Lambda function now. Like, how easy was that? We can go through this briefly, though. I'm not going to just leave you hanging and go, what does it do? What does it do? Very quickly, we can see here, this is where we're going to paste our webhook URL, but we're not going to paste it directly in here. We're going to create some environment variables with the Slack webhook URL, user, and channel names that we want to use. And we're going to create them as environment variables here. So we're not going to do this, not going to put it straight in here. Test mode is if you just want the entire CloudWatch data sent to your Slack channel. And I'm going to give you a heads up here. This is where it gets a bit tricky sometimes. Not all CloudWatch JSON content looks the same. Sometimes there's fields there, sometimes there isn't. It's annoyingly inconsistent, but for a lot of resources, it's totally the same. But if it doesn't work for some reason, you can put this to true, and it will skip all of this clever processing, and it will just send you a big blat out to Slack, and you can use that for testing. So that's just something we can do. So down here, you can see that we're grabbing all of our information. We're pulling the region and everything out there to build our details. And here's where we're being clever. We're using our resource tag mapping API here, pulling all the tags that we need out, and we're building that detailed Slack message here. Okay, so actually when you break it down, it's actually not that complicated of a Lambda. The only kind of really clever thing that you probably would have needed to know if you're doing this yourself was how to get the Yor tags, and that's using this API here. Okay. We are so close now. All we have to do is go create a CloudWatch event and connect that to our Lambda as a trigger. And again, very short step. Let's take a look. I am finger on the trigger, about to go to CloudWatch, but I also am going to point out the repo again. If you come in here and we go into examples, we have our CloudWatch event format already there for you. And I'll explain why we're providing that as well in just a few seconds once we get there. So we go into CloudWatch, and in there we're going to create a new rule. Okay, we're there, a lot going on. Where are we creating this rule? In Events, Rules. So let's click on Rules here. We're going to create a rule. All right, and it's going to be an event pattern. I am going to choose Custom Event Pattern, and we can see we have a clean slate. I'm going to grab this from here. Let me grab the raw. That's easier. All right. There we go. Now you're probably thinking, why can't I just go from a specific scheduler pattern or something like this? There's kind of a chicken or egg scenario sometimes. If you don't know what the CloudWatch event is going to look like, and earlier when we were looking at the Lambda function, you don't know necessarily what the CloudWatch details look like, it can be difficult to create a custom event pattern. But really, once you get used to the JSON format, it's not really that hard, but we've done it for you so that you can get started quickly. So that is going to look for non-compliance from AWS Config, looking for this particular managed rule identifier. Pretty straightforward, really. We're going to add a target. It is a Lambda function by default, which is handy. We're going to go find that new Lambda function we created, which I think we called Yor demo. There it is. And we're going to give it a name, which is our Yor watch. That sounds good. Or bad. It's a demo. And create the rule. Pow. We are good to go. Let's go see that it's connected. Here we go. We're back in our Lambda function. Look, this that just said add trigger before now is noting that we have an EventBridge CloudWatch event there. We have our function. We're kind of good to go. Now there's a few things we could do to try and test this. One is to go into test, and if you want, back in our GitHub repo, there is some text JSON you can use to test this without actually creating an event, which is actually pretty handy because maybe you don't want to set up an event. If we go to right here, you'll see there's a lot of JSON there. And that is an example. If we look at raw, you can grab all of this mess and I thought it was Hungarian. Paste that into a test case, a new test event. And then you can click test and it will hopefully send you a Slack message. It should. But if you want to demonstrate this properly, then we're just going to go back to AWS Config and we're going to get it to evaluate our rule. And that should trigger our Slack message. Now here's the rule we created. We can click that. We can go to, I can see there's a whole bunch of non-compliant records. because it's pretty common. And I can get it to reevaluate. Now, I had already deployed that S3 from the beginning that I knew was non-compliant. That's how I'm testing. And it's a particular one. So if I reevaluate this now, it's going to check that rule against my resources. And if we did everything correct, and I know we did because I've done it before, then it will create a CloudWatch event and we will see our notification come up in Slack. Let's go check our Slack out. And there we have it. This just in. Actually, a whole load of them kicked off because I have a lot of, actually, instead of the one I was just looking at, which was financial, I have all sorts of bad S3s. So we can now use this. We pulled the Yor tags out. Trace on GitHub is going to take us directly to GitHub using the Yor trace as a search. This will take us using the commit, and this will take us directly to AWS as we saw in the beginning of this video, and it will use a search through AWS Config to take us directly to that resource, which is non-compliant. Pretty cool. Let's click on this now and just verify that that is happening. And there we go. We are looking at our resource inventory and we can see there is our non-compliant S3 bucket just there. Okay, let's go back and take a look at our GitHub. Okay, we are back here again. Let's click on Trace on GitHub and see if it takes us just to a single resource. Let's see. There we go. There's our S3. Just like earlier, I can grab that. I can click directly through here and jump directly to that particular operations bucket. All right, there we go. We did it the slow way, but you saw in the original video how fast it is. Now that it's all set up, it's easy, right? And you can set up rules for your most common misconfigurations using the AWS rules. Not at all a problem. But if you want to make sure you don't actually get these configuration errors, well, it might be a good idea to start using something like Bridgecrew's Chekhov in your CI to make sure that you catch all of your infrastructure as code misconfigurations as early as possible. So go check out Chekhov, go check out Yor, and reap all the amazing benefits from that. My name is Steve Giguere. I am a developer advocate for Bridgecrew. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Plenty more to come.